watching Big Brain Energy.
Okay, so you've heard about changes in demand or changes in supply, but dude, I don't even really understand it. Like, why do demand and supply change? How do I know which curve to move? It's so confusing. I don't get which curve I'm meant to move and in what direction. Don't stress. By the end of this video, you'll know the answer to your woes. The demand curve shows the amount of something that people are wanting to buy. Here's a basic supply and demand graph that we start with equilibrium price and quantity where the curves intersect. If you're not confident with this, check out our previous video on supply and demand. An increase in demand means that we draw in a new demand curve to the right of the original demand curve. We label it D2. Shifting to the right means an increase. We can then draw in the new equilibrium price and quantity based on where the new demand curve intersects the original supply curve. We label this P2 and Q2, which is at a higher price than it was originally and a higher quantity. Let's now look at a decrease in demand. A decrease in demand is this time a shift of the demand curve to the left. So shifting the curve to the left means that it is decreasing. This results in a new equilibrium price and quantity P2 and Q2, which is at a lower price than the original and a lower quantity than the original. What sorts of things can change demand? Let's go through a list of the main things, starting with an increase in demand. Demand of things can increase if there is an increase in income. For example, if you have more money, then you might want more Moro bars, or whatever it is that you're talking about, right? More money equals more spending, so people demand more. Another situation is population growth. Basically, if there are more people, then there'll be more people wanting to buy stuff. Population growth could mean any reason why there's more people, like if there are a bunch more tourists in Wellington, then the demand for coffees might increase in Wellington. Another situation is changing preferences. This encompasses all things which might influence someone to buy more of something. For example, maybe there's a trend which influences people to buy stuff. Like when Labubus became trendy, this increased the demand for Labubus. Or if something had really good marketing strategies, it might encourage people to want to buy more of something, so demand increases. Another situation is the expectations about the future. Basically, if we expect the price of something to rise in the future, then we might want to buy more of it now while it's still cheap, so the demand would increase. For example, when COVID happened, people were freaking out. They were like, oh my god, the economy is going to crash, I better go stock up on toilet paper now. And remember, the demand for toilet paper skyrocketed and everyone went and snatched them up. Another situation is a decrease in the price of complements. Complements are things that you typically buy together, like movie tickets and popcorn. If the price of one of these things decreases, then you'd buy more of it, and so you'd also buy more of the other thing. Say the price of movie tickets becomes cheaper. You'd go to the movies more often, and so you'd buy more popcorn. So the demand for popcorn would increase. Our final situation is an increase in the price of substitutes. Substitutes are other things that you can buy which give you the same result. Like, for example, a Coke and a Pepsi. They do the same thing. If the price of one of these things increases, then you just buy the other thing instead. Say Coke becomes really expensive, people would just buy more Pepsi. So when the price of a substitute, Coke in this instance, increases, you demand more Pepsi. Let's now look at things that could cause a decrease in demand, which is the opposite of the increase. A decrease in income can cause a decrease in demand. If you have less money to spend, then you'd want to buy less stuff. A decrease in population could cause a decrease in demand. If there are less people, then there's less stuff being demanded. Changing preferences. If something becomes unpopular, people would want to buy less of that thing. Like fidget spinners, for example, aren't trendy anymore. People are demanding less of them now than they were 10 years ago. Or if there was bad marketing or some kind of scandal that came out about the product, like when it became known that Starbucks was supporting Israel, a bunch of people stopped buying Starbucks, so demand decreased. Expectations about the future. If people think something's going to become cheaper in the future, they'll buy less of it now while it's still expensive. An increase in the price of complements. Remember, complements are things that you typically buy together, like movie tickets and popcorn. If the price of movie tickets increased, then you'd also buy less popcorn, so the demand for popcorn would decrease. And lastly, a decrease in the price of substitutes. Substitutes were things that serve the same purpose, like Coke and Pepsi. If the price of Coke decreased, then you'd buy more Coke and less Pepsi, so the demand for Pepsi decreases. In the exam, they usually give you a situation that happens, and then they ask you to illustrate the effect on a graph. So you have to figure out if it's affecting supply or demand and if it's increasing or decreasing. The situation that they give you will likely be within this list that we've just made. One small note, a change in price causes a shift along the curve, not a shift of the whole curve. So if the price of the thing that you're selling increases, then we just show a price increase on the price axis, which represents a shift along the curve. A change in price does not shift the whole curve. So a change in price is the only odd situation you have to be aware of. A change in price causes a shift along the curve, not a shift of the whole curve. Alright, let's try and consolidate this new understanding with some practice questions. Firstly, illustrate the effect of an increase in demand on the graph below. Here's the answer. The demand curve shifts to the right. Illustrate the effect of a decrease in demand on the graph below. Here's the answer. The demand curve shifts to the left. Illustrate the effect of Labubus becoming trendy on the market for Labubus. When Labubus became trendy, lots of people wanted to buy them, so the demand curve for Labubus increased, shifting to the right. Illustrate the effect of Kanye being cancelled on the demand for his Yeezy shoes. When Ye was cancelled, less people wanted to buy Yeezy shoes because they didn't want to be associated with him, so demand decreases, shifting to the left. Illustrate the effect of an increase in the price of petrol on the market for petrol. A change in price doesn't shift any curve, we simply put in a higher price on the price axis, P2. This is a shift along the demand curve. Alright, that's everything for this third video in our series. Next we'll be looking at how these changes in demand and supply impact producer and consumer surplus. So check that out if you're taking the 3.1 exam. The internet is saturated with American-based videos. If you found this video useful and you're doing economics in New Zealand, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to our channel. It really does make a difference to the algorithm, and it allows these videos to reach those who need it. And as always, feel free to leave comments down below with any questions you have about the content, or if you have suggestions on what we should cover next. See you next video for more big brain energy.